For the past half a year, Tacticooler has been the absolute face of the meta, and while for the most part that's been a positive thing, today we're gonna try to tone it back down. And while doing so, I'll try to make the special feel a little bit better to use, as well as make more of the cooler weapons viable for competitive play. So today, I'm gonna tackle all of this. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoy, and let's get into it. While Tacticooler should be good, it does have some problems, the subject of which might be a topic for another video, but the main things right now are everyone playing the same way, it basically being a mandatory requirement, not very many cooler weapons as options to be used, and most importantly, the ability to respawn with all of your specials fully charged, as especially on the other modes when you need to make more progress across the map, this can feel a little bit unfair. While Tacticooler should definitely be making your death less impactful, being able to respawn with all the specials to immediately retake has created a lot of problems. That being said, Cooler has also created one of the most diverse metas ever. The job with nerfing this is not to stop it from being used. We want to keep this as the best special in the game and highly encourage people to use it, to say the least. We just want to make sure that people aren't going to be able to run two of them, or that everyone has to use it. So let's start with the nerf. The special saver amount that you retain upon your death will be reduced from 100% to 80%. Now, the way Tacticooler works in general is that it doesn't stack with gear, so don't worry that 1 or 2 subs of special saver will help negate this nerf. Basically, if you have enough special saver to save more than 80% of your special, then Tacticooler won't have an effect at all. And if you have any less, the Tacticooler effect will take place. This is also how it works with other abilities like swim and run speed, for instance. I think this change still keeps most of the special being saved, allowing people to fight. However, it creates that small little delay when respawning to ensure that not everybody can get their special. Probably only 1 or 2 people painting spawn for a little bit, or you'd have to leave more of the area of your base uninked to be able to paint upon respawn. Either of these things, I think, balance it out. To compensate though, let's give it some UI changes and buffs. I know 2 things really annoy me when using the special. 1, respawning and frantically trying to find out where it is looking at the minimap to get absolutely no help. I think the cooler should actually show on the minimap. That way you can easily tell which of your teammates or beacons to jump to be closest to it and grab it before it expires. And 2, the duration. The cooler stand lasts 13 seconds and then the special lasts anywhere between 17 and 25 seconds based off special power-up. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's way too difficult to keep track of. So here's how I think it should work. When you grab a buff, the very top of the screen squid icon will show a meter draining. Basically, the color you have when you have your special activated, but it'll just drain over time, and it goes toward the bottom when your special is out. This means that you can look at the top of the screen to get a rough idea of how much time you and your teammates have left on Tacticooler. That should make it a lot easier to know when the effect is going to expire. We're not done with the nerfs yet, though. One cooler weapon itself needs some nerfs. Pencil, which is the biggest culprit of cooler meta right now. It is the most common weapon and the one that can spam them the most due to its absurd amount of gear freedom. On top of that, as its playstyle has evolved, it has gotten a bit less cool and a bit closer to V-Jet or Flingza in Splatoon 2 sitting back and spamming a special. Now, it's not as bad, but it's a bit of an issue. And on top of that, its matchups are really oppressive given its insane range plus mobility, mainly against things like Splatlings, which have dropped off a bit too much. So here's how I nerf the weapon. Its range will be reduced from splatter scope range to splat charger range, which includes the paint it puts on the floor. This means it's going to be much closer to the range of other backlines, allowing them to fight it more easily, while it still keeps its insane mobility. And on top of that, it painting slightly less at a distance means you'll have to play a little bit closer, while still being able to paint for teammates effectively and slightly lowering the paint output as a whole. I think this is a change that would keep Pencil in a healthy spot for the game. Outside of Pencil, we have Zap and Edit, which both got made 200p in the most recent patch, so I think their spammability is toned back, and they're fine. Finally, the last one of the main 4 cooler weapons, Tri-Slosher, was made 210, which, while a bit unnecessary, I don't really mind either, and I think it can stay as is. Let's take a look at the other 3 Tacticooler weapons we have in the game, and try to make them better. Of course, it would be even cooler if we had more than 7 options, but we're just talking about a patch here. First up, Dynamo Roller. This weapon's horizontal flick buffs seem to help its damage a lot more than it seems, so I think buff-wise we can focus on paint and vertical flick. I've still talked about this before, so I'll make it fast. Vertical flick minimum damage should go up from 40 to 60. It shouldn't be as good as Stamper because this weapon paints a lot better than it, or at least it will now. However, this will make vertical flick able to combo similar to how it does with Pencil, as well as 2-shot by itself, even if opponents heal a little bit. I'll also be buffing its paint from its inconsistent pattern to its Splatoon 1 paint, which is about 40 points per flick. This might sound like a lot, and it is, but this is Dynamo's whole thing, and with bad ink efficiency and speed problems, it needs to turf well. To compensate for all of this though, it's gonna go from 190 to 200p to make sure it doesn't spam cooler too much. Next up, Dappledoodly. This one's probably doomed. Its kit doesn't really lend itself to the best support, nor is it very synergistic with the weapon itself that it's on, but maybe it could be a thing for Rainmaker. So, a little bit of extra pain range by like 10% so it gets a bit more coolers, and hopefully it sees niche use, but we're probably screwed here because of the sub. Oops. Last, but most importantly to me, the H3 Nozzle Nose. One of the hypest weapons we've had in the meta of Splatoon 2 and something we'd missed. Having a support with insane playmaking one-shot potential. And on top of that, we could have a support option with point sensor. That's actually a pretty interesting niche for this game. So let's fix it. We're going to be doing 3 pretty substantial buffs. First up, the N lag is going to be decreased from 20 to 18 frames. This seems like a drastic change, and well, it is, but H3 is having a really hard time keeping up with everything with how laggy it is. This fire rate change is going to allow it to paint better, to fight better if it's not one-tapping people, which does happen, and move a lot more. However, it comes at the trade-off of slightly worse ink efficiency, which we'll get to later. I think this is a necessary buff given how fast Splatoon 3 is. The other one is also alongside that. I'll be doubling the shot velocity of the weapon. I think this will help a lot for lining up and hitting your shots on faster opponents, and make it more dependent on the weapon's aim and not having to lead your shots as much. Finally, in the buffs department is increasing the ink efficiency by 10%. Now, considering this weapon got an ink efficiency nerf in Splatoon 2, and we just upped its fire rate, which indirectly nerfs it in this game, it being buffed by only 10% still doesn't actually undo the nerf in Splatoon 2. And that's because I'm mostly okay with that nerf. I think that mid-range weapon should have a bit more downtime, and the amount of ink consumption the weapon has is part of what keeps it from being a paint spammer. It's just a bit overtuned. So this change is to slightly mitigate it without taking it away as a weakness. And of course, I've already done this 3 different times, so you guys can probably expect the 190 will go up to 200p. And there you go. I don't think it required too many changes. But this is a cooler with a bit less negative effects on the game that's being spammed a little bit less and can be used on more of the weapons in the game. In my opinion, adjusting this special and the weapons with it is the most important thing they can do for the meta. And so that's what I'd want to see. I do hope if cooler stays in the meta for a while though, that we get a few more weapons with it, because I think it's really important to have a lot of options for a special that's basically a necessity. What do you think of my changes? Let me know and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.